Hi, I'm Julie Steele with O'Reilly Media, and I'm here with Peter Wang, the president and co-founder of Continuum Analytics. And how's it going? You're in year two?
It's great. It's year two. Very hectic. We started in January of 2012, and the first year was really about promoting Python and kind of supporting all the users that we see in the data science and the data space. We come from a very scientific computing and HPC sort of background, but we saw Python just being picked up and used everywhere, right? And so we were really excited by that, but we also saw that there were some challenges there. And so the first year was all about that, building the ecosystem, building the PyData workshops and the conferences, which we're really appreciative of you helping us really get kicked off. And then the second year has really been about product, about working with customers. We get pulled in a lot of interesting places, so we're really excited to see all that happen.
So your co-founder, of course, is Travis Oliphant, and he was involved in SciPy and writing
That's
that.
right. So he wrote NumPy, but before that, he and Eric Jones and Piero Peterson, they put together SciPy like in the 2001-ish, sort of,
So how does that DNA inform what Continuum is doing?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's certainly a lot of just kind of street cred that comes from that, and also just with Python, it's all about the community. The people in the non-Python data Python world recognize that community is a key aspect of what makes Python such a nice language. But then in the scientific Python community, in the Python data community, it's very friendly, really like ego-free, drama-free. And so we just really like all our friends in the community, right? And so it's, but that DNA of community, open source, data connectivity, glue, all those things certainly very much inform our direction as a company. Yeah,
and how do you find coming then to the data science community, which is still kind of fragmented and finding its way, but some parts of that have a different flavor, different feel. How do you find that interaction?
It's great. I think it's a really, really big pond, right? And so there's a lot of users that come by our booth, for instance, that are passionate devotees. Other people come by and they've maybe heard of Python. There's other people, I think there's some people who want to have, they see a tension between R and Python. And we really, neither us or some of our folks, some of our friends that work in the R world, we don't feel that way about each other, right? Like the devs in these various places work really nicely together. We're all friendly with each other. We think there's enough space, enough problem domain for everyone to sort of tackle. And so, but anyway, I think we just sort of, a lot of little places, we see Python used in really very, very intense sort of applications. And then also in very lightweight places, just teaching data science, learning basic machine learning. So it's a really great, I think it's a tool with a lot of breadth. So.
I was going to ask, so we've seen a lot more in recent years of people mixing and matching their own tool set, right? And just like any kind of toolkit, you've got a hammer and a wrench and a screwdriver, and they're good for different purposes. Where does Python really shine in terms of the data science?
So I think Python shines really in terms of being, you sort of have confidence that this mature open source language and open source ecosystem will give you something for just about any particular problem. It'll connect to just about any given data source, right? I think it's very rare to encounter a vendor offering or an new open source NoSQL database or anything that doesn't have a Python API, right? There are a lot of web and cloud-based providers that have JavaScript APIs, but they frequently will offer also an R or a Python or Ruby API. And so that there's a quip that sort of Python is not always the best job for the tool. Python's not always the best tool for the job, but it's very frequently the second best tool for the job. And that one tool being able to do a lot of things pretty well actually gives you a lot of flexibility and agility.
So a lot of people don't know of it. Python is actually pretty robust when it comes to visualization too, right? From soup to nuts, it has a lot of libraries.
There's actually a lot more depth in the Python visualization space than people recognize, just because some of the people who do the work are academics, researchers, they don't do a lot of self-promotion. And so there's really great tools for 3D visualization, really great tools for large data set visualization that don't get promoted as much, I think. Of course, Matplotlib is sort of de facto, like everyone uses it, and it's very popular. But it also has some limitations, but people are building more and better things on top of that, doing really wonderful things with it. Of course, I'm also working on a tool, Bokeh, which is really, I think, web native for Python. But even then, it's not just Python. We have a Scala interface. We're looking at building R and Ruby and C++ interfaces. But in all these areas, I think right now, more than I've ever seen in my 10 years of involvement with the ecosystem, there's a lot of innovation in Python visualization. It's very exciting.
So if someone came and checked out not just Viz, but Python for any part of the data science process 2 years ago and decided maybe it wasn't right for them, what should they know? Like, what are the developments in the last couple of years?
Oh, the developments are tremendous, right? So the conferences, the PyData conferences, have been amazing. So they took off. I mean, we had our workshop right there at Google, and that was like 50 people. And then in New York, it was sold out, 200 something people. It was the first real conference version. And then we had then 2 more conferences, and then in last year in New York again, we had almost 400 people, and we had JP Morgan stepped up and basically gave us like this amazing space at One Chase Manhattan Plaza.
That's cool.
And it just shows how much Python's being used, and all the talks are from practitioners, everything from advertising analytics to people doing really cutting-edge machine learning, distributed algorithms, and so the vibrancy of that ecosystem, right? Yeah. So this year we're going to have, again in Boston, we have Silicon Valley coming up here in May. 2 weeks from now we're going to have it in London, the first one in the Europe, and then in July we'll have it in Berlin, and then in October we'll have it in New York again, right? So 5 conferences, and there's always different speakers. It's really vibrant. And then the materials, so many IPython notebooks being published, so many courses. Every single time we do a PyData conference, we have videos as well. And those videos are actually very nice, tutorial videos, everything else. So we're just seeing that I think the user group, the user community around Python for data has really started gelling.
It's really wonderful to see you importing what is such a wonderful part of the Python culture into now the data science arena. And I think that's a real strength that you can bring. Like you said, I mean, it's sort of the less appreciated part of Python, but it's such when you're working day to day, you want to love the people you're working with.
That's right.
And so
it's it's all the subtle. It's almost like kind of a microaggression against noobs, sort of in a lot of places. They're sort of like, oh, you don't know this, why don't you know that, or you're not hardcore enough on this thing, or we're just using this some new open source library someone released, and we're all the hip kids because we're using that. Yeah. Versus understanding that, a practicing data analyst has a ton of stuff they got to manage, right? Yeah. They got to get real work done, and in Python, they know they can go and find tutorials, find people that are friendly, tutorials that are very no nonsense. Yeah. And overall, the community is just, you're right. It's really, really great to have such friendly people.
I've definitely experienced that myself. Yeah.
Oh, good. All right,
it's really great. So just to conclude, I'm really curious, what's coming up for Continuum, and what are the challenges that you're excited about hacking on?
Yeah. So we're doing, we're pushing all of our open source stuff. The DARPA funding for some of these things has really been super helpful, and so our distributed NumPy sort of library that Blaze, that's making good progress. Bokeh, the large-scale visualization for the web, that's making good progress. And then our product story is really, I think, this year getting really good traction. So we have Anaconda Server, which is, Anaconda is our free Python distribution. Yep. Anaconda Server helps data science teams manage the deployment of scripts of whether it's Python or R, Java, Node.js, whatever, just managing multiple different versions of open source libraries in production. Yeah. Something people don't talk about. Open source developers don't scratch that particular itch, but it's a production problem everyone has. So Anaconda Server makes that just trivially easy. And then Wakari is our Python browser analytics platform in the cloud. Yeah. But we also have an enterprise version of that, and that's being now widely, I think, trialed and being adopted by a number of people. It's very exciting to see that. And we're hoping to integrate R and various other things into that as well.
That does sound good. Well, congratulations and thank you for talking to me.
Thank you so much.